The hum of the incubator is a familiar lullaby, one I didn't ask for, one I'm forced to endure. Again, I lie here, a wrinkled, red-faced infant, newborn Lila, they call me. But inside this tiny, fragile shell, it's still me. The 17-year-old mind, sharp and furious, trapped. My eyes, though supposedly unfocused, see everything. I watch them, Dr. Richard and Margaret Chen, my parents. Their voices are hushed, a conspiratorial murmur that slithers through the sterile air of the NICU. The complications, Richard. Our reputation, Margaret whispers, her perfectly manicured hand gripping his arm. Her brow is furrowed, not with concern for the life she just brought into the world, but for the potential stain on their pristine medical practice. It's the exact same conversation. The exact same words. The ones that echoed in my ears as my previous life ebbed away. Her sigh, a soft, dismissive exhalation, is the trigger. It's like a key turning in a rusted lock and the memories flood in, sharp and agonizing. I was 17, gifted, they said, a prodigy in a family of medical royalty. But my heart, the literal muscle in my chest, was failing. A treatable condition, ironically. Treatable with an experimental surgery, one that carried risks, yes, but also a high chance of success. My parents, the renowned cardiologist Dr. Richard and Margaret Chen, proprietors of the Chen Heart Institute, weighed the options. Not for my life, but for their image. A failed case, especially one so close to home, could tarnish their legacy, scare off the wealthy clientele who flocked to them for their supposed miracles. "It's too risky, Lila," Dad had said, his voice smooth, practiced, the same one he used on patients he was subtly guiding towards less effective but more lucrative treatments. "The established protocols, they're safer." Safer for whom? I'd wanted to scream. For their damn clinic. Mom had just nodded, her gaze distant, already calculating the PR spin if the worst happened. And it did. I remember the relentless beeping of the machines, the cold dread seeping into my bones, and Nurse Elena Vasquez holding my hand, her face a mask of grief and impotent rage. She was the only one who fought for me, who argued for the surgery, who saw me as a person, not a liability. "We need to discuss options," Richard is saying now, his voice pulling me back to the present, to this tiny, useless body. He glances at my incubator, a flicker of something, annoyance, disgust, in his eyes. "For this situation." Margaret nods, her expression tight. "A long-term care facility, perhaps, discreet, out of sight. We can say it was a tragic, unavoidable outcome." My tiny fists clench. The fury, the remembered betrayal. It's a living thing inside me, coiling and writhing. They're planning to discard me just like they let me die. Hide the imperfect child. Protect the brand. A different presence approaches. Softer footsteps. A gentler aura. Nurse Elena Vasquez. Her face is older now, lined with a few more years of fighting battles she rarely won within these hospital walls. But her eyes, when they meet mine, are the same, kind, fierce, and full of a sorrow that mirrors my own. She checks my vitals, her touch surprisingly gentle on my paper-thin skin. "Shh, little one," she whispers, her voice a balm. My enhanced infant hearing, a strange perk of this bizarre reincarnation, catches every syllable. "You're a fighter. We'll get you through this." The same protective words, the same unwavering spirit. She doesn't know. She can't possibly know she's speaking to the ghost of the girl whose hand she held as life slipped away. The girl she promised she'd find justice for. And later, during a late-night feeding, when the ward is quiet and the shadows long, Elena is there. My birth mother, Margaret, had made a token appearance, her touch cold and brief, her scent of expensive perfume alien and unwelcome. She'd complained about the hospital lighting giving her a headache before retreating. Elena hums a soft tune as she holds the bottle. Her warmth is a stark contrast to the chill Margaret left behind. I watch her, really watch her. This is it. This is where it begins again. But this time, I'm not a helpless teenager succumbing to their neglect. This time, I know their playbook. This time, I have a plan. She looks down at me, a small, sad smile on her lips. Such alert eyes for a little preemie, she murmurs. And in that moment, I make a choice. A conscious, deliberate act. When Margaret had tried to nuzzle me earlier, I'd remained limp, unresponsive, my tiny face turned away. But now, as Elena speaks, I turn my head, just a fraction, towards the sound of her voice. My eyes, as best as an infant's can, try to focus on hers. It's a small gesture, almost imperceptible, but Elena, attuned to the slightest nuances of her tiny patience, notices. Her breath catches. "Oh," she says softly, her smile widening just a bit, a flicker of surprised warmth in her eyes. "Hello there." It's not forgiveness, it's strategy. I can't speak, I can't write, I can't expose them directly. Not yet. But I can observe, I can learn, and I can subtly, painstakingly guide the one person who ever truly cared for me. My rebirth wasn't just a second chance at life, it was a second chance at justice. And this time, Richard and Margaret Chen would not see it coming. The game is on. The days in the NICU blur into a monotonous cycle of beeps, hushed voices, and the constant, sterile smell that I associate with my previous demise. But this time, I am not merely a patient. I am a spy in a bassinet. My parents, Dr. Richard and Margaret Chen, float in and out, their concern performative, their conversations always circling back to their clinic, their reputation, their money. I feign typical newborn responses. The weak cries, the jerky movements, the vacant stares, all while absorbing every detail. I watch them with other families. The desperate parents hanging on their every word, faces etched with fear and hope. I see the subtle manipulations, the way Dad gently steers them towards the most expensive, often unnecessary procedures. Cutting edge, he calls them. The very best chance for your little one. His voice is a symphony of false reassurance. Mom plays her part too. The compassionate but firm matriarch of medicine, nodding gravely, her presence lending an air of unimpeachable authority. They are a well-oiled machine, preying on vulnerability. Their patient roster, their current schemes, it's all information, data for my silent war. One afternoon, while I'm supposedly asleep, their voices sharpen with excitement. "The grant came through," Richard exclaims, a rare, genuine smile creasing his face. "The Ellison funding for the cardio-regenerative study, Phase 1 approved. My tiny heart, the very organ that failed me before and is now paradoxically strong in this new fragile body, gives a lurch. The Ellison grant, I remember it, the cornerstone of their early empire. The research was a sham, the data falsified, the results fabricated to attract more funding, more prestige. They'd built their kingdom on a foundation of lies, and here they were, laying the same rotten bricks again. I listened from my crib, their triumphant words echoing in my mind. Another piece of the puzzle, I think. Another weapon for later. Nurse Elena is my sanctuary. Her shifts are beacons of genuine warmth in this cold, calculated world. She's taken to spending her breaks by my incubator, reading aloud from medical journals. Not the dry, technical jargon, but articles about community health initiatives, new approaches to patient advocacy, stories of doctors who prioritize care over profit. "Imagine, Lila," she'd said one afternoon, her voice soft but filled with passion. "A clinic where no one is turned away, where every patient gets the best possible care, regardless of their ability to pay." She sighs, a wistful sound. "Just a dream, I guess. Takes a lot of money, a lot of connections." Her words plant seeds, not just for her future, but for mine, for the intricate plan taking shape in my mind. Her motivations are pure, untainted by the greed that consumes my parents. She speaks of healing, of compassion. My parents speak of revenue streams and board meetings. The contrast is thrown into even sharper relief when they bring Victoria to visit. Victoria, their golden child. Adopted a few years after my previous death. She's a cherubic toddler now, with bouncy curls and a bright, innocent smile. My parents transform in her presence. They coo, they laugh, they shower her with affection and expensive-looking toys. "Isn't she perfect, Richard?" Margaret gushes, holding Victoria up for him to admire. Victoria, dressed in a miniature designer outfit, giggles and claps her hands. Then their eyes might briefly flicker towards my incubator. Margaret's smile tightens. Richard clears his throat. The specialist for Lila called. He thinks a few more weeks here, then we can arrange the transfer to the Willow Creek facility. Willow Creek. I remember the glossy brochure, a long-term pediatric care center, a place to hide their inconvenient, imperfect biological child. The same dismissiveness, the same blatant favoritism that fueled their neglect before is on full display. Victoria is their public image of a perfect family. I am the secret, the flaw to be managed and concealed. It's time for my first move. It has to be subtle, something that can be attributed to the fragility of a premature infant, yet targeted enough to achieve a specific outcome. I've been tracking their schedules, their important meetings. Dad has a dinner tonight with potential donors for a new wing at the Chenhart Institute, a project that will line their pockets handsomely. As the evening shift begins and Elena is meticulously checking my monitors, I wait for the opportune moment. Just as Dad pokes his head into the NICU for a brief, perfunctory check-in before his important dinner, looking more at his Rolex than at me, I trigger it. A small, controlled desaturation. My oxygen levels dip just enough to set off a soft alarm, nothing life-threatening, but enough to require immediate attention. Elena is by my side in an instant. "Easy there, little fighter," she murmurs, her skilled hands making adjustments, her calm voice soothing. Dad hovers in the doorway, his impatience a palpable aura. "Is she all right?" he asks, his tone betraying his annoyance at the delay. "She just had a little dip, Dr. Chen," Elena says, her focus entirely on me. "Common in preemies. She's stabilizing now." I let my levels return to normal under Elena's care. Just as quickly, when Dad, after a cursory nod, finally leaves for his donor dinner, I cause another minor fluctuation. Then another, a bit later, when Mom is on a video call with a pharmaceutical executive in her office. A call I know from their earlier hushed discussion involves negotiating kickbacks for prescribing their newest, overpriced heart medication. Each episode is small, easily managed by Elena, but they create a pattern. These spells only seem to occur when Elena is present and often, conveniently, when my parents are occupied with their financial ambitions. They require Elena to spend more time by my incubator, meticulously documenting everything. They also subtly highlight her competence, her unwavering attention. And by contrast, they underscore my parents' absence, their detachment from the daily realities of their critically ill child. Elena, of course, sees only a fragile infant needing her care. She has no idea she's a pawn, no, a queen, in a game orchestrated by the very baby she's trying to save. Her meticulous notes on my episodes, detailing the times and my parents' whereabouts, are unknowingly becoming the first threads in the web I'm weaving. It's a slow, patient strategy, played out in tiny breaths and fluctuating heartbeats. But the game has truly begun. The air in the hospital always felt thick, with a peculiar blend of desperation and detachment. For most, it was a place of healing, of last resorts. For my parents, it was their kingdom and the patients, their subjects. Some to be saved spectacularly for good press, others to be managed for optimal profit. I'm nestled in Elena's arms, a rare moment of quiet comfort outside the confines of my incubator. We're near the nurse's station, and down the hall, I see him, Dr. Richard Chen, my father, in deep conversation with a young couple. Their faces are pale, etched with worry. I recognize the look. It's the one I saw in my own mirror so many times in my past life. He's doing his concerned but brilliant routine, his voice a low, serious rumble. "The initial scans are perplexing," he's saying, his hand gesturing vaguely. "Young Leo's condition, it's not presenting as a typical cardiomyopathy. We'll need to run a more extensive series of tests, perhaps explore some advanced imaging, keep him here for closer observation." I know what he's doing. Leo. I'd overheard the nurses discussing him, a bright, energetic 5-year-old with a sudden onset of fatigue. The preliminary echo which Elena had seen suggested a straightforward viral myocarditis inflammation, treatable with rest and medication. But Dad is already spinning it into something complex, something requiring prolonged hospitalization, expensive and invasive procedures. It's the same pattern. The deliberate misdiagnosis, the dragging out of treatment to milk the insurance, to justify the Chen Institute difference. It's the very malpractice that defined my slow, agonizing decline. A cold fury settles in my tiny chest. Meanwhile, in my parents' narrative, I'm just progressing. Hitting her milestones, Margaret chirps on the phone to some society acquaintance, her voice dripping with false maternal pride. Of course, it's a long road. We're already in consultation with the Willow Creek facility. They're miracle workers with delicate cases. Delicate cases. That's me. The burden. They believe I'm just a developing infant, oblivious, a blank slate. They make their plans for my disposal, discussing the logistics of transferring me as if I'm a piece of inconvenient luggage. Their belief in my utter helplessness is my greatest asset. My counter moves have to be subtle, almost accidental. Elena, bless her unsuspecting heart, is my conduit. She often works late, catching up on charting, her dedication far exceeding her job description. I've learned her routines. I've also learned that my parents are shockingly lax with sensitive documents in their shared office when they're rushing off to their glamorous fundraisers or important golf games. Tonight, Dad is schmoozing some local politician, angling for a zoning variance for a new private wing at the Institute. Mom is at a charity gala, showcasing her philanthropy. Their office, I know, will be empty but unlocked for a few hours. As Elena is preparing my late-night feed, I start to fuss. A genuine cry this time, a little more insistent than usual. When she picks me up, I nuzzle against her, then arch my back. A tiny, seemingly uncomfortable squirm that makes her shift her hold. It's enough. The bottle, held loosely, slips from her tired grasp and clatters onto the floor, milk splashing across the tiles. "Oh, goodness," Elena exclaims, flustered. "Clumsy me. Don't worry, Lila. I'll get another one." She settles me back in the incubator and rushes off. But the accident has a purpose. It creates a delay. It means she'll be here later than usual. When she returns with a fresh bottle, I'm cooperative for a while, then I start my true maneuver. A series of small, irritating feeding disturbances. I latch on, then pull away. I take a few sips, then turn my head, appearing to refuse the nipple. Each time, Elena patiently coaxes me, her brow furrowed with concern. "Come on, sweet girl," she murmurs. "You need your strength." This charade continues, dragging out the feeding. It's exhausting for her, I know, but necessary. Finally, well past the time her shift should have ended, she sighs. "I just need to finish your chart, little one, and then maybe you'll settle." She carries me with her to the nurse's station. Then, because it's closer and quieter at this hour, to her and Dad's shared office to use the desktop computer. Perfect. As she types with one hand, cradling me with the other, I wait. Then, another accidental jerk of my tiny body. My arm, flailing, knocks a pen off the desk. It rolls under a stack of files teetering precariously on the edge. "Oh, for heaven's sake," Elena mutters, but there's no real annoyance in her voice. She gently places me in the crook of her arm, leaning down to retrieve the pen. As she reaches, her eyes fall on the top file in the stack. It's Leo's. And tucked just inside, visible only because the folder is slightly askew from my accidental nudge, is a printout of an internal email chain from Dad to the billing department, detailing a complex and highly questionable coding sequence for exploratory cardiac procedures, pediatric. Procedures Leo hasn't even had yet. Elena frowns. Her fingers, retrieving the pen, brush against another document, this one peeking out from beneath Dad's desk blotter. A list of pharmaceutical reps, with handwritten notes beside their names. Lunch, Dr. A, golf, Mr. B, and next to one name, weekly envelope confirm. Her frown deepens. She glances at me, then back at the documents. She's a smart woman, a dedicated nurse. She's seen things over the years, heard the whispers, but this is something tangible, something ugly. She doesn't say anything. She finishes my chart, her movements a little more tense now. She takes me back to the NICU, settles me into my incubator. But I see the look in her eyes, a new kind of disquiet. A seed of suspicion has been firmly planted. The next few days are a whirlwind, but not for me. For my parents. The parents of young Leo armed with that nagging feeling that something wasn't right, had sought a second opinion. The second opinion confirmed viral myocarditis, simple, treatable, not the complex, terrifying diagnosis Dad had been painting. A malpractice lawyer, renowned for taking on big medical institutions, was suddenly involved. The media got a whiff of the story: a prestigious heart clinic, a grieving family, a child's life mishandled. And then, as if on cue, an anonymous package lands on the desk of the head of the state medical board. It contains copies of those internal emails, the list of pharmaceutical reps with the damning annotations, and a detailed typed account of Dr. Chen's pattern of overtreating and misdiagnosing patients for financial gain. Elena, I know, wouldn't have typed it, but she might have made copies. She might have spoken to someone, a trusted mentor perhaps, who knew how to navigate these treacherous waters. I watch from my incubator, a silent observer to the storm I've unleashed. Dad is a thundercloud of fury, pacing their opulent home office. I see it on the baby monitor they've reluctantly installed, more for their peace of mind than mine, barking into his phone at lawyers, at PR people. Margaret is a ghostly figure, her face pale, her composure shattered. Their hushed, urgent conversations are no longer about my future at Willow Creek, but about subpoenas, audits, and the terrifying prospect of public disgrace. How could this happen? Margaret wails one evening, her voice raw. Who would do this to us? Dad slams his fist on the desk. Someone inside, obviously, someone with a vendetta. Their stress is a palpable thing, a delicious, dark energy that fills the room. It's the first real taste of satisfaction I've had since this whole nightmare began anew. Elena, my perfect, unwitting instrument of justice, is safe. No one would suspect the dedicated nurse, the one who only ever showed compassion. They're looking for a sophisticated enemy, a rival, a disgruntled former employee. They never once look at the tiny, helpless infant in the incubator, the one who sees everything, the one who remembers, the one who is patiently, meticulously taking them apart piece by piece. The retribution is just beginning. The fallout from the Leo case and the anonymous tip to the medical board sends tremors through my parents' gilded world. Their desperation is a raw, ugly thing, and it doesn't take long for it to curdle into something vindictive. Margaret, in particular, seems to unravel with a chilling speed. Her paranoia latches onto Elena, the nurse who was always too dedicated, too observant. It's her, Richard. I know it is. I hear her hiss one night, her voice a venomous whisper on the baby monitor. That Vasquez woman. She's always lurking, watching. She's trying to destroy us. Don't be ridiculous, Margaret, Dad snaps back, though his own voice lacks conviction. She's a nurse. What could she possibly gain? She's jealous. She's always been. Of our success, of what we've built. It's a familiar script. In my past life, when Elena had tried to raise concerns about my declining health, about the refusal to consider the experimental surgery, Margaret had orchestrated a similar campaign: slander, rumors, attempts to discredit her professionally. Now history is attempting to repeat itself. I'm in my incubator, supposedly dozing, when Margaret makes her move. It's late, the NICU quieter. She slips in, thinking she's unobserved. She heads straight for the nurse's changing room, a small, rarely used vial of a controlled pain medication palmed in her hand. She's going to plant it in Elena's locker, frame her for drug theft, a career-ending accusation. But I'm not dozing, and I'm not just a passive observer anymore. My physical development, while still within the normal range for a preemie, has been subtly advanced by my conscious effort. I can't walk or talk, but I can control my tiny limbs with more precision than they realize. Elena had left her phone on the small charting desk just outside my room. Earlier, she'd been showing me pictures of her scruffy terrier, her voice soft and fond. Now, as Margaret is inside the changing room, her back to the corridor, I begin to fuss. A series of increasingly agitated movements. I kick my legs, my tiny arms flailing. I manage to roll, a clumsy, lurching movement, but enough. My flailing hand connects with the edge of the bassinet, and with a surprisingly forceful nudge for an infant, I knock a spare receiving blanket onto the floor. It lands with a soft thump. Not enough. I try again, a more desperate wriggle. My tiny fist connects with the side of a plastic medical supply box left too close to my incubator. It tips, spilling a few individually wrapped alcohol swabs. Still not enough to draw Elena out from the nurse's station down the hall where she's conferring with a doctor. Then I see it. Elena's phone, still on the charting desk. If I can, with a grunt of effort that feels monumental, I arch my back and kick out, a surprisingly coordinated for an infant movement. My foot connects with the leg of the small wheeled medication cart parked beside my incubator. It's not a hard kick, but it's enough to make the cart wobble. It's enough to dislodge a small metal basin that was perched on its edge. The basin clatters loudly to the floor. This time, it works. Elena and the doctor both look up. "What was that?" Elena says, frowning. She excuses herself and walks briskly towards my room. As she approaches, she sees the fallen basin, the blanket, the swabs. She sighs, a small, tired sound. "Oh, Lila, you're having a party in here, are you?" She steps into the room to check on me, and as she does, she glances towards the changing room. The door is slightly ajar. She sees a flicker of movement. Margaret, looking furtive. Elena's eyes narrow. She picks up the fallen basin. Then, as if on instinct, she glances at her phone, still on the charting desk. She'd been in the middle of a text to her sister when the doctor called her over. The screen is still lit, and the camera app, which she'd been using to show me the dog pictures, is still open. Facing the changing room door, recording. A slow smile, cold and dangerous, touches Elena's lips. She doesn't let on that she's seen anything. She calmly checks my vitals, murmurs soothing words, then tidies the small mess. But I see the new resolve in her eyes. Margaret's clumsy attempt at a frame-up has just handed Elena irrefutable proof. My accidental clumsiness had a purpose after all. Dad, oblivious to Margaret's botched sabotage, tries a different tactic. He pulls strings, calls in favors. He wants Elena transferred. She's becoming overly attached to the infant, he tells the hospital administrator, his voice oozing false concern. It's clouding her judgment. Perhaps a less emotionally demanding department would be more suitable. But I have other plans. Suddenly, my minor medical episodes take on a new pattern. They only occur when Elena isn't on shift. When another nurse is tending to me, I'll have a desaturation, a bradycardic spell. Nothing serious enough to cause lasting harm, but enough to alarm the staff, enough to require meticulous documentation and Elena's specific, calming intervention when she returns. The other nurses, frustrated and a little unnerved, start requesting Elena specifically for my care. The administration, faced with a difficult and highly sensitive patient, that's me, and the documented fact that I am most stable under Nurse Vasquez's care, reluctantly rescinds the transfer order. Elena stays, right where I need her. Now it's time to introduce a new element to their unraveling. My past life knowledge isn't just about their medical malpractice. I also remember hushed late-night arguments, glimpses of spreadsheets on Dad's computer, talk of offshore entities and creative accounting. They weren't just negligent doctors, they were tax evaders, masters of financial fraud. This requires a more delicate touch. I can't exactly point Elena to a Cayman Islands bank account, but I can guide her. My parents, in their escalating panic, are becoming careless. They're having more hushed, frantic meetings in their office, sometimes leaving files strewn on the desk when they rush out. During one of Elena's late shifts, while she's holding me and quietly humming, I begin to cry. Not a typical infant cry. This one is specific, a high-pitched, inconsolable wail that I only produce when I'm near their office. Elena tries everything rocking, a pacifier, checking my diaper. Nothing works. The moment she walks away from that end of the nurse's station, I quiet down. The moment she walks back towards their office, the wailing starts again. "What is it, little one?" she murmurs, perplexed. "What's got you so upset over here?" She paces, trying to soothe me, and as she passes their open office door, they're both out at yet another emergency meeting with their lawyers, I stop crying abruptly. I even manage a small gurgling sound that could almost be interpreted as contentment. Elena stops, looks into the dark office, then back at me. I stare pointedly towards Dad's desk. Curiosity and a growing sense of unease about the Chens gets the better of her. She steps inside just for a moment. On the desk, left out in their haste, is a folder. It's not medical. It's labeled Project Sparrow Private. Inside, not deeply hidden at all, are statements from an offshore bank, details of shell corporations, documents that would make any forensic accountant salivate. Elena's eyes widen. She quickly backs out of the office, her heart pounding. She doesn't take anything, not yet. But she's seen it. The seed is planted. The pressure cooker that is my parents' life is about to explode. The malpractice suit is moving forward. The medical board investigation is intensifying. Now, the IRS, acting on an anonymous tip, Elena, I suspect, found a way, is sniffing around their convoluted finances. Their carefully constructed empire is crumbling around them. The arguments are no longer hushed. They're raw, furious, echoing through the house via the baby monitor. This is your fault, Richard. Your sloppy accounting. My fault? You were the one who had to have the villa in Tuscany, the designer, everything. You bled us dry with your spending. I bled us dry? You and your ridiculous research grants that never produced a damn thing except more debt. They're turning on each other. Their partnership, once a formidable alliance of ambition and greed, now a viper's nest of blame and recrimination. I listen from my crib, a tiny, impartial judge, savoring their paranoia, their mutual accusations. Their marriage is deteriorating just as I planned, their empire is unraveling, and they still have no idea who's pulling the strings. The quiet hum of the NICU is a stark contrast to the turmoil I know is raging within the Chen household. Elena is on the night shift. She's been more subdued lately, a thoughtful, almost troubled look in her eyes whenever she looks at me. She knows something is deeply wrong with my parents, with their ethics, their finances. She has pieces of the puzzle, collected through my subtle nudges and her own growing suspicions. But she doesn't have the full picture, not yet. Tonight the ward is unusually peaceful. Most of the other tiny patients are stable, their parents gone home for a few precious hours of rest. Elena finishes her rounds and pulls a chair up to my incubator. She often talks to me during these quiet hours, a habit she developed when I was her only patient who seemed to actively listen. You know, Lila, she says softly, her voice barely above a whisper. You're a little miracle, aren't you? So tiny, yet so strong. She reaches a finger through the incubator porthole, gently stroking my cheek. Her touch is warm, hesitant. There's something about you, something wise in those big eyes. This is it, the moment. I can't keep her in the dark any longer. She's proven her loyalty, her courage. She's the only one I can trust. But how do you tell someone you're a reincarnated genius? Orchestrating revenge from a neonatal intensive care unit. I focus all my will, all my 17 years of intellect, into this tiny, underdeveloped body. My vocal cords are rudimentary, my muscle control infantile. But I have to try. She's looking at me, a gentle smile on her face. I meet her gaze, and then I speak. It's not a coo, not a gurgle. It's a word, formed, deliberate. Na. The sound is weak, raspy, barely audible, but it's there. Her name. Elena freezes, her eyes widen, her smile vanishing, replaced by stunned disbelief. She pulls her hand back as if she's been burned. What did you say? I try again, pushing against the physical limitations. Ina, help! Tears prickle at my eyes. Not infant tears of discomfort, but tears of frustration, of the sheer effort it takes. Elena stares at me, her face pale. No, that's impossible. Babies can't, you can't. I need to show her more. Something undeniable. I focus on the monitor beside my incubator, the one displaying my heart rate, oxygen saturation, the familiar green and blue lines. I remember my medical charts from my past life, the complex terminology, the specific drug interactions Dad had been researching for his fraudulent study. Again, I force the sounds. Amiodarone tox I city. It's a garbled mess, but the keywords are there. Amiodarone, toxicity, a specific, complex medical concept no infant could possibly comprehend, let alone articulate. Elena gasps, her hand flying to her mouth. She looks from me to the monitor, then back to me. The color drains from her face. How do you know that word? This is the leap of faith. I lock my gaze with hers, trying to pour all my conviction, all my truth into that single, desperate look. Dead. I was dead. Help me. Stop Them. The room is silent save for the gentle hum of the equipment. Elena is trembling, her eyes wide with a mixture of terror and dawning comprehension. She looks at me, this tiny infant, and for the first time, I think she sees me. Not just Lila the preemie, but someone. Something else. You were, she whispers, her voice shaking. The girl, the heart condition, the one your parents, they let her die. I manage a tiny affirmative sound, a small, choked sob that is more than just infant distress. Elena sinks into the chair, her body sagging as if the strength has been knocked out of her. Oh my God, she breathes. It's you. You came back. The initial shock, the sheer impossibility of it, slowly begins to recede from her face, replaced by a rising tide of protective fury. The pieces click into place for her. My unusual alertness, my parents' strange detachment, their escalating legal troubles, the coincidences that led her to incriminating evidence. It all makes a terrible, supernatural kind of sense now. They killed you, she says, her voice low, vibrating with anger. They chose their clinic, their money, over your life. I make a sound of agreement, a tiny whimper of remembered pain. And now, Elena continues, her eyes blazing, they're trying to discard you again. Willow Creek. I look at her, trying to convey the urgency. Stop. Them. Please. Elena leans forward, her face close to the incubator. The fear is gone, replaced by a fierce determination I remember so well from before, when she fought for me against their indifference. Lila, she says, her voice firm now, tell me everything. Tell me how they did it. Tell me how we make them pay. My ultimate plan. It was never just about my own personal revenge, satisfying as that might be. It was about justice. For me, yes, but also for all the other patients they'd harmed, for the system they'd corrupted. And Elena, with her integrity, her courage, was always meant to be the one to bring it to light. My infant status was the perfect cover, allowing me to gather information, to subtly manipulate events without suspicion. Elena would be the whistleblower, the hero. She would get the credit and the protection that came with it. Over the next few hours, in hushed tones with painstakingly formed words and gestures, I begin to tell her. Fragments of my past life, the crucial details of their fraudulent research, the location of the hidden financial records, the falsified patient charts I knew they kept. I guide her mentally through the labyrinth of their crimes. The power dynamic in that small, quiet NICU room shifts completely. Elena is no longer just a nurse caring for a helpless infant. She's a warrior, armed with an impossible truth, allied with a brilliant reincarnated strategist. She looks at me not with pity, but with a fierce, protective awe. They won't get away with it this time, Lila, she vows, her hand resting gently on the incubator. I promise you, we'll burn their kingdom to the ground. And I, tiny Lila, secure in the knowledge that my most trusted ally finally understands, finally knows the full, horrifying truth, allow myself a moment of peace. The game is entering its final devastating phase. The courtroom is a circus, and my parents are the lead clowns, though they don't see the irony. Dr. Richard and Margaret Chen, stripped of their white coats, their faces pale and haggard under the harsh fluorescent lights, are trying to sell a narrative of victimhood. They face a mountain of charges: medical malpractice, multiple counts of fraud, tax evasion, and now, thanks to Elena's carefully compiled evidence, even conspiracy. Their strategy is as desperate as it is pathetic. They want to use me, baby Lila, as a sympathy prop. Their lawyer, a slick, expensive shark, paints a picture of devoted parents, hounded by a vindictive nurse in a tragic, unavoidable medical situation with their newborn. These are loving parents, he booms, gesturing towards Richard and Margaret, who are dabbing at their eyes with practiced sorrow. Grief-stricken by their daughter's precarious health, and now facing these outrageous, baseless accusations. He even has the audacity to suggest that I should be in their custody. A child needs its parents, especially a child with such challenges. I'm present in the courtroom, a tiny, silent observer in Elena's arms. I am, as their lawyer puts it, Exhibit A for their supposed parental devotion. But the effect is not what they intend. Under Elena's care, I am thriving. I'm a healthy, alert baby, my eyes following the proceedings with an unnerving focus for my age. The contrast between my current state and the Chen's earlier attempts to institutionalize me is stark. Then, Elena takes the stand. She is calm, composed, her voice clear and steady as she recounts not my supernatural story, but the cold, hard facts. The neglect she witnessed, the falsified records she discovered, the conversations she overheard, the deliberate misdiagnoses, the kickbacks, the offshore accounts. Each word is a nail in their coffin. She presents the evidence meticulously, the financial documents I guided her to, the recordings of Margaret attempting to frame her, the patient testimonials from families the Chens had exploited. She speaks of my unusual spells that only occurred when my parents were absent, of my remarkable improvement once she was consistently assigned my care. She doesn't need to mention reincarnation. The truth of their callousness is damning enough. Dr. and Mrs. Chen showed a consistent pattern of prioritizing their financial and reputational concerns far above the medical needs of their patients, including their own biological daughter, Lila, Elena states, her gaze unwavering as she looks directly at my parents. Richard and Margaret stare back, their faces masks of indignant fury. The courtroom is silent, captivated. When it's Richard's turn to plead, his composure cracks. He's no longer the confident, authoritative doctor. He's a desperate man, his voice trembling. He speaks of stress, of misunderstandings, of the pressures of running a high-profile clinic. He even tries to claim a sudden, profound paternal love for me. Lila, she's my daughter, he chokes out, tears welling in his eyes. I know we made mistakes. We were overwhelmed, but we love her. We can do better, please. Just give us a chance to be her parents. Margaret follows, her performance even more theatrical. She weeps, she begs. She tries to appeal to Elena directly, a twisted plea for solidarity. Elena, please, she sobs, her voice honeyed with false remorse. You're a woman. You understand a mother's heart. Take the money, whatever you want. Just let us have our daughter. Disappear with her if you must. We won't stop you. Just don't do this to us. They are utterly oblivious. They still see Elena as the primary architect of their downfall, perhaps manipulated by rivals, but fundamentally a nurse they could buy or intimidate. They have no concept, not even in their wildest nightmares, that the placid infant in Elena's arms is the one who orchestrated their ruin, the one who remembers every lie, every act of cruelty, every moment of neglect from a life they cut short. Inside, I feel a strange calm, a cold, quiet refusal of their pleas. There is no pity, no flicker of doubt. I remember my own final, desperate moments in my previous life. The fear, the pain, the crushing loneliness, as I realized they were choosing their clinic over my breath. They showed no mercy then. I feel no mercy now. Their tears are meaningless, their promises hollow. They are not victims. They are perpetrators, finally facing the consequences of their choices. The judge's gavel falls with a resounding crack. The verdict is swift, unequivocal, guilty, on almost all charges. Their medical licenses are revoked permanently. They face significant prison sentences for fraud and malpractice, and most satisfyingly, all parental rights to Lila Chen are irrevocably terminated. Custody is awarded to nurse Elena Vasquez. The courtroom erupts in a low murmur. Elena pulls me closer, her own eyes wet, but with relief, with triumph. The judge even commends her, praising her courage and integrity in exposing such deep-rooted medical corruption. She is hailed as a hero. I look at Richard and Margaret. Their faces are ashen, their bodies slumped in defeat. Their empire, built on lies and suffering, has crumbled to dust. Their adopted daughter, Victoria, I later learn, is sent to live with her maternal grandmother, shielded from the toxic fallout of the Chen dynasty. It is done. Justice, cold and precise, has been served. My rebirth, my strange, impossible second chance, wasn't just about survival. It was about this moment, the reckoning. And as Elena carries me out of the courtroom, away from the wreckage of my former life, I feel not hatred, not even a vengeful glee, but a profound, weary sense of closure. The cycle is broken. 1 year later. The sterile scent of the hospital is a distant memory, replaced by the aroma of baking bread and the faint, sweet smell of lavender from the garden. Elena's home is modest, a small, sun-filled house with a slightly overgrown yard and a porch swing that creaks a welcome. It's filled with laughter, with books, with the happy chaos of a toddler learning to explore the world. That toddler is me. I'm Lila Vasquez now. I play with wooden blocks, my tongue poked out in concentration as I attempt to build a tower that inevitably topples. Elena, when she's not chasing after me or rescuing household objects from my curious grasp, studies at the kitchen table. She's working towards her nurse practitioner degree, a dream she'd almost given up on. The whistleblower rewards and a hefty settlement from the hospital for their gross negligence in overseeing the Chen's corrupt practices have made it possible. We don't talk about Richard and Margaret Chen much. Their names occasionally surface in news reports Elena skims online. Dr. Chen, I gather, now sells medical equipment, his charm and persuasiveness finding a new, less destructive outlet. Margaret serves community service hours at a local soup kitchen, her designer clothes replaced by a drab apron, her social standing obliterated. Victoria, their golden child, is reportedly thriving with her grandmother, away from the scandal that engulfed her adoptive parents. I feel a strange detachment from their fate. They are characters from a previous chapter, a story that has reached its conclusion. My own transformation is more profound than just a change of scenery or surname. I was a brilliant teenager, yes, but also unloved, a pawn in my parents' ambitious games, ultimately a sacrifice to their greed. I died alone, my potential snuffed out by their cold calculations. Now I am a cherished child. I am surrounded by genuine maternal affection, by a warmth that thaws the last vestiges of the ice that had encased my previous heart. My rebirth, my second chance, it gave me something far more valuable than revenge. It gave me the chance to experience real family, real love. The intellect is still there, a quiet hum beneath the surface of toddler explorations. I understand far more than I let on, but there's no need for subterfuge anymore. No need for intricate plans or whispered manipulations. I can simply be. Evenings are my favorite. Elena, tired but content after a day of classes and clinicals, will sit with me in the big, comfy armchair in the living room. The nursery, once a sterile NICU room, is now filled with colorful educational toys, stacks of picture books, and a mobile of smiling planets that dances above my crib. No medical equipment, no beeping monitors, just peace. She reads to me, her voice soft and animated as she brings tales of brave knights and talking animals to life. I snuggle against her, her arm a secure, comforting presence around me. I no longer need to hide my advanced understanding. I can point to the pictures, babble my appreciation, and simply enjoy the uncomplicated joy of being a child, protected and valued for my mere existence. Tonight she's reading a story about a lost star finding its way home. As the story ends, she closes the book and kisses the top of my head. Her scent is of soap and gentle exhaustion, a comforting, familiar aroma that means safety, that means love. "Sleep now, my little star," she whispers, her voice thick with affection. I look up at her, at this woman who fought for me, twice, in 2 different lives. The woman who saw beyond the dying teenager, beyond the helpless infant, and recognized a soul in need. As I drift off to sleep, cradled in her arms, my last conscious thought is one of profound, quiet gratitude. My supernatural second chance hadn't just allowed me to right the wrongs of the past. It had led me to my real mother, not the woman who gave birth to me, but the one who chose to love me, to fight for me, to cherish me when it mattered most. This new dawn is peaceful, and for the first time in either life, I feel completely, unequivocally home.